The admission ticket to the movie was $5. Parents petitioned the school to review its admission policy. The admission ticket to the movie was $5.
She failed to gain admission to the university of her choice. There is no admission to the park after 5 p.m.
Admission.
Astronomy.
Harold loved watching the stars, so he decided to study astronomy. Harold loved watching the stars, so he decided to study astronomy. Harold loved watching the stars, so he decided to study astronomy.
They conducted a 10-day astronomy mission. A radio telescope is used primarily in the area of astronomy.
The Student Astronomical Society, SAS, is an organization for undergraduates interested in astronomy.
Astronomy.
Blame.
They blame the losses on the warming of the Earth.
She doesn't blame anyone for her father's death.
She blamed my typing and having a light on while she was trying to sleep.
Why do I always get the blame for everything that goes wrong? Mrs. Lopez put the blame on her husband for losing their life savings in the stock market.
Blame. Chemistry.
In chemistry class, the professor taught us about chemical reactions.
Mini disks are an example of the advances of cutting-edge research in physics and chemistry.
In chemistry class, the professor taught us about chemical reactions.
She was awarded a Nobel Prize in chemistry.
I failed my physics exam, but I passed chemistry.
Chemistry.
Despite.
We still play the game despite the cold weather.
They had a wonderful holiday, despite the bad weather.
She still smokes like a chimney despite warnings from her doctor. Bus fares were raised despite the protests of the community.
Agassi was famous around the world, despite never having won an important tennis championship.
Despite.
Dinosaur.
I like to see the dinosaur bones at the museum. I like to see the dinosaur bones at the museum. The professor is presenting the museum's dinosaur bone collection to visitors.
The animal comes from a group of long-necked herbivorous dinosaurs.
Dinosaur. Exhibit.
There was an animal exhibit at the fair. Within a week on display at the exhibition, the painting was hailed as a masterpiece. The museum is rich in exhibits.
The exhibition continues until July 25th.
He takes his girlfriend to see an art exhibition.
Exhibit.
Fame.
He had fame and fortune, but he was not happy.
Madonna left home at the age of 20 to pursue her dreams of fame.
Her fame was bought at the expense of her marriage.
Joseph Campbell, the famed mythologist, identified the common thread running through the mythological journeys found in most cultures.
She first rose to fame as a singer at the age of 16.
Fame.
Forecast.
The weather forecast said it was going to rain later today.
They forecast a large drop in unemployment over the next 2 years.
The weather forecast said it was going to rain later today. This situation is contrary to the initial forecast.
The report forecasts that the demand for workers in the agricultural sector will decline.
Forecast.
Genius.
Since she was a genius, she easily passed all of her school exams.
He yells, "Chris Moses is a genius."
He is a writer of transcendent genius.
She's a genius at doing crossword puzzles.
Einstein was a mathematical genius.
Genius.
Gentle.
She was the gentlest of nurses. She is as gentle as a lamb. That's why everybody likes her. She was the gentlest of nurses.
Her gentle disposition recommends her to everybody. That's a very gentle tone.
Gentle.
Geography.
I had to draw a map for geography class.
My favorite subjects at school were history and geography.
The geography paper was hard.
She studied geography at Cambridge University.
I had to draw a map for geography class.
Geography.
Interfere.
My little sister always interferes when I'm trying to study.
The receiving range is determined largely by site noise and interference factors.
We cannot interfere in the internal affairs of any country.
If people's interference with the environment decreases, more species will survive and produce offspring.
Don't interfere in what doesn't concern you.
Interfere. Lightly.
Draw lightly so you do not tear your paper.
Toast the bread lightly on both sides.
Draw lightly so you do not tear your paper.
He moved lightly on his toes like a boxer.
Lightly.
Principal.
My school's principal can be very strict with the rules.
We had to go and see the principal one at a time.
The principal put the cat among the pigeons when he informed the students that the excursion was cancelled. My school's principal can be very strict with the rules.
She abused her position as principal by giving jobs to her friends.
Principal. Row.
There are a lot of rows of people watching the film in the cinema.
Goody-goodies usually sit in the front row and smile at the teacher during class. Several students are arranging school desks and chairs into neat rows. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter novels are all bestsellers.
I've gone quite a few years in a row.
Row.
Shelf.
He bought a bookshelf.
Reflectors were attached to the corners of the shelves, to alert the clerks that the shelf edges were sharp.
Put it on the shelf above.
The continental shelf underlies the Atlantic Ocean.
Put one shelf against the wall.
Shelf.
Out of spite. He snuck into his sister's room and stole her bag out of spite. He snuck into his sister's room and stole her bag out of spite. Out of spite.
Super.
His idea was super.
We try to shop at our local supermarket.
All work is done under the guidance of a supervisor. His knowledge is still so superficial. He supervised and trained more than 400 volunteers.
Super.
Wet.
Try not to get your shoes wet.
His driver's license is wet. The world's largest wetland is the Pantanal in southwest Brazil. He put the wet dishes in the dish rack.
Downpour make me wet totally.